Hi, Stephen here. Welcome back to the Aroundtable. And today I'll be talking about some of the albums in my collection that will be celebrating their 30th anniversary in 2023. First off, we have Paul McCartney, Off the Ground. This was released in February of 1993. It was the follow up to his very well received Flowers in the Dirt record. Unfortunately, Off the Ground didn't ignite the charts or really enthuse the fan base or the critics. Didn't do that well off the chart. I think it just made it gold. It struggled to get there. But I did like Hope of Deliverance and Come On People. Those were the two tracks that stood out for me. Nowhere near, I thought, as good as Flowers and Dirt, but still, it was Paul McCartney, and I'm a sucker for Paul McCartney. He can sing Mary Had a Little Lamb, and I will go pick this up, and this was no different. There was a deluxe edition that I found with B-sides, and there's a song like Long Leather Coat. That was a good release. Some of those songs should be, if he ever reissues this album, you should put some of those extra songs that were on that import edition that I found somewhere, and that would be really great. Nowhere near the greatness of Flowers in the Dirt, but he tried to do a live in the studio thing, and I give him kudos for that. Next up, February 8th, 1993, an 80s band, this one called Poison. The album was called Native Tongue, and this is where guitarist C.C. DeVille was fired or let go, depending on how you want to look at it, and this blues guitarist Richie Korzeń came in. Now, I enjoyed this album. I love the song Stand, Theater of My Soul. There's a whole bunch on there. I think it's a really great record, a different side of Poison, and I enjoyed it. Unfortunately, Richie Korzeń had an affair with, I believe, Ricky Rocket's fiance, and that kind of ended his tenure with the band. So it was a short lineup, only one album, but I really enjoyed it, and I was really hoping Poison would continue making records and that genre. I like them with the blues style into it. I really like that. Next up, Mick Jagger, Wandering Spirit. That was also, I believe, February 9th, 1993. This album was produced by legendary producer Rick Rubin, and this is probably my favorite Mick Jagger album. It's has some rockers that could put anything the Stones did, could match them. Anything. There's some really, like, Put Me in the Trash, really good. There's Sweet Thing, which was kind of like Emotional Rescue Part Two. There's a good. He does a duet with Lenny Kravitz. There's a whole bunch of stuff. Variety of styles on this album. Underrated Mick Jagger solo project, in my opinion. I think it's his best of his career, and it really deserves. I hope there's a reissue of this too, and it really deserves your attention. I think if you're a Stones fan, you owe it to yourself to pick this up. It's probably one of the best Stones albums that the Stones never made. Next up, Duran Duran, self-titled album, or some people call it the wedding album because there's like a wedding picture on there. This was their comeback album with Come On Done and Ordinary World, and where these British kind of sex symbols became beloved elder statesmen, and it kind of started their resurgence in that direction. I thought it was a decent album. I enjoyed it. Was never a diehard Duran Duran fan, but that kind of got my attention, and I enjoyed it. Next up was Sting's album 10 Sumner's Tales, which was released on March 1st, 1993. After probably the very dark little, Sting was kind of processing his parents' death on the previous record, on the Soul Cages, and it is a difficult. It's a great album, but it's a hard listen. Very, very somber album. 10 Sumner's Tales is more back to Sting, kind of doing poppy songs, and probably his most accessible of his solo career, I think. If I Lose My Faith in You is a standout for me. Great track. It's always on my playlist, and I think it's one that if you've never bought it, it deserves to be listened to. I think it's one of Sting's more entertaining records. Next up is Are You Gonna Go My Way? A lot of varied sounds on there, a little bit of blues, a little bit of rock. I mean, of course, Are You Gonna Go My Way is the song that catapulted Kravitz to mega stardom. That album was released, I believe, March 9th in 1993. I think it sold like 3 million copies and put him on the map ever since, and he's been around. And liked it. I enjoyed it. Not, I think it's not a cohesive record, but it's still a good record. Next up is a underrated super project from David Coverdale and Jimmy Page. Really like this album. Kind of the next best thing to not having Zeppelin around was this album. Great, 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 great album. Pride and Joy was the big hit single. There's a great ballad called Take Me for a Little While. I like Shake My Tree off there. I think it's a great record. A lot of people were making fun of David Coverdale, saying that he sounds a lot like Robert Plant. You know what? If you're gonna emulate somebody, emulate Robert Plant. What's the big deal? Greta Van Fleet does it, and we're behind it. This album seems to have a struggle. It just went platinum, like 1 million units. I thought this should have been a mega seller, in my opinion. I hearing that David Coverdale has the rights to this and is going to reissue it with a lot of bonus tracks because they were going to go back and make a follow up, and that just didn't happen. And that's unfortunate because it is a phenomenal rock record. If you're looking for another one that sounds Zeppelin-esque, you actually have Jimmy Page, the guitarist of Led Zeppelin, on there. So I mean, I don't know what else you can ask for. Great record, Coverdale Page, love it. Next up, April 20th, 1993, Aerosmith, Get a Grip. 2 Grammy nominations, 7 million units sold. Crying, Living on the Edge, amazing. Were the singles off there. I didn't like it as much as Pump, but it's a solid album and a lot of fun to listen to. And like I said, 7 million units sold. Not they did something right on that one. Next up, Billy Joel, River of Dreams. August 10th, 1993. Great album. I enjoyed it. It's his last studio album of original material, and it's unfortunate. I really wish he would make another album. I know he doesn't want to. He says the fans will not listen to it. I think after all this time, there would be interest. I mean, we saw the success of the Styx albums. Def Leppard did well. I know that's not the same kind of genre, but after a long period of time, there's a demand, I think, for new material, and I think Billy Joel should do something. I think he's still got it. I'm pretty sure he does. Next up is John Mellencamp's Human Wheels. I thought that was a good album, a little bit more mature. It only sold about 750,000 units, which is kind of disappointing for a Mellencamp album, but it's still good. I mean, I liked What If I Came Knocking, great single. Next up, what would I like? What did I like? Meatloaf, Bat Out of Hell 2, Back into Hell, September 14th, 1993. This was a sequel to Bat Out of Hell, and there was like a 16-year gap before they could get that going with Jim Steinman penning the songs. And it worked. It sold 14 million copies, and there was that massive, massive hit song, I'll Do Anything for Love, But I Won't Do That. Last on my list of these anniversary albums is Rush, Counterparts, and that came out, I think, in October 19th of 1993. What got me going on that album, I enjoyed Presto from them and Roll the Bones. They're good albums, but it lacked the guitar punch, and this one brought the driving guitars back. And that's what I liked about it. And for me, that's always going to be one of my go-tos. That was kind of where Rush turned it around and embraced themselves again and kind of got back to their roots. And this was the catalyst of that. So Counterparts is another album that you should go back to and listen to. I think there's some pretty good tracks on there. Nobody's Hero, and it's still pretty good. I enjoyed it, and I think it's deserves to be in your collection. And that's about it. Those are my selections that are gonna celebrate 30 years. If there's something I missed, let me know. I'm sure I have, but those are the ones that are in my collection and that I go back to. Even the McCartney, although it's disappointing, every once in a while I pull it out and I can see where he's going with it, but again, disappointing compared to Flowers in the Dirt or Flaming Pie, like. But I think that stumbling block kind of led him to tweak his approach to the record, and I don't think if he would have done that, I don't think Flaming Pie would have happened. So, but that's my take on it. Next up after this one, we'll be doing I think albums that are going to be 35 years in 2023, and I'll see you then. So hope you like this list. Let me know if you have any of these. Did you like them? Do you still go back? Is there something I missed? I'd love to hear from you. This is Steven from the Aroundtable, wishing you everybody the very best for 2023.